By Dave Finlay. A homeowner has lost a legal challenge against a decision requiring him to drastically reduce the height of a high hedge that overshadows a neighbouring property. Brian Rizza took issue with the Scottish Government reporter who made the ruling after concluding the trees that made up the hedge were a barrier to light which adversely affected the enjoyment of a property at 24 Drummond Circus, in Inverness, owned by Roger and Catherine Niven. He claimed that the trees did not meet the criteria for a high hedge laid down in Scottish Parliament legislation and that a reporter appointed to decide an appeal had erred in law. The reporter carried out a site visit and saw the trees at Brian Rizza's home at Blair Lomond, in Drummond Crescent, in Inverness. She found that 11 of them were planted in 4 rows with a further 6 in the area. Mr. Rizza raised a judicial review at the Court of Session in Edinburgh after the reporter ruled that the majority of the trees, which were 15 to 22 metres high, should be cut back to 2 metres. The statute referred to a row of trees in the singular and it was argued that applying other legislation which provided that words in Holyrood legislation in the singular include the plural would produce absurd results. There was a risk that a hedge might be formed of an indefinite number or rows and would be indistinguishable from woodland. But a judge has rejected the contention and said that if the assessment was carried out in a way that was reasonably open to the decision-maker there should be no real risk that a wood or forest was found to be a hedge. Lady Carmichael said, "It would, however, be perverse and absurd if the owner of a hedge were able to avoid a finding that it was a high hedge because he planted more than one row of trees or shrubs so as to achieve a more dense and effective screen." As use of the word row includes the plural, it follows that the reporter did not err in law by reason of finding that a collection of trees in 4 identifiable rows was a high hedge, said the judge. Lady Carmichael said the considerations that the reporter, appointed by the Scottish Government, founded on were ones she was entitled to take into account. The reporter was criticised for taking into account the species of tree involved. But the judge said, "It is a matter of public notoriety that Leylandii are used to form hedges. While the circumstances that Leylandii are planted will not be conclusive as to whether there is a hedge, it is a relevant consideration." The judge said, "It may well be, as the petitioner, Mr. Rizza, submitted, that woodland is sometimes planted in discernible rows. The pattern of the planting in rows was nonetheless a relevant consideration in discerning whether the trees were a hedge. Hedges are generally planted in a line. For more on this story, visit the news article link.